Good afternoon, Britannia, and hello to the rest of the world. Welcome to 2CTV, your global news channel. Rupert Lowe and his team are growing in the fight against the grooming gangs, multiculturalism, and corruption in the political establishment. As we've just received an update that yet another Reform UK MP has now joined this team, but also we have people joining from the Tory party, well, the right of the Tory party, including Esther McVey. We're going to go through the update with you guys. It seems like the British Patriots are assembling cross-party, despite the political pressure, despite the fact that some of these parties have indicated that they do not want to get involved with any of this, especially when it comes to the grooming gangs and the inquiry against it. And this isn't really stopping some people. And we're going to go through this. Obviously, if you're watching this live, we will get your reaction in the live chat. Rupert Lowe has done a great job so far over the last few days. Since his announcement and his launch of the fundraising for the inquiry, and he's received a lot of money. We're going to give you guys the actual updates. We have the actual latest up-to-date figures on that in terms of the crowdfunder. But James McMurdock, the Reform UK backbench MP, has now also joined the team. We recently had Sammy Woodhouse, obviously one of the activists and also independent journalist who's also a survivor and obviously a previous victim herself of the grooming gangs. She's also joined now. James McMurdock is obviously busy right now because we have the local elections. These guys are all campaigning across the country, but he actually decided to do this, and it is the right thing to do. So the actual inquiry, the account on X said, "We are pleased to welcome Reform's James McMurdock MP to the panel of our rape gang inquiry. This is a genuine cross-party effort united by our commitment to uncovering the truth, delivering justice, and holding failed institutions to account. It is extremely important to make sure you do get people from all political parties and even those who do not belong to any party when it comes to these sort of campaigns, because this is how you put pressure on the actual establishment and the actual state and the authorities." So there's been a lot of reaction to this update already on social media, but Rupert Lowe responded saying, "Delighted to have James on the panel." So obviously that's good that they are working together. But we had this reaction saying, "Given Farage's dismissal of this very inquiry, James McMurdock shows real courage in choosing to disagree with Farage as leader, especially considering what happened to the last man who dared to do the same. Credit to James for setting aside political differences in the pursuit of justice." It's a good point. Now, obviously, the leader of Reform UK is against this inquiry, but the actual members of Reform and MPs, they are still independent-minded people, a lot of them, and if they want to join something, they should be able to do it. Of course, there will be some consequences, political consequences, but James has decided to do it regardless. We've also, as I said, had people from the other parties, I mean specifically the Conservative Party, including Esther McVey. She has also now joined Rupert Lowe's team and this official panel. They announced the inquiry announcement. Esther McVey joins our expert panel. Esther is the Conservative MP for Tatton and a former cabinet minister with extensive experience across government, broadcasting and education reform. A passionate advocate for social mobility, Esther brings a long-standing commitment to helping young people build confidence, purpose and resilience. She's the founder of the If Chloe Can charity, which delivers a pioneering career development program to pupils aged 12 to 14. The course focused on confidence, assertiveness and resilience has been adopted by schools nationwide. Having started life as a Barnardo's child, Esther has a deep personal understanding of what it means to overcome adversity. She has spent years working with schools, teachers and pupils to extend opportunity to every corner of the UK, regardless of background. Esther joins the panel to ensure that young voices are heard, victims are respected, and the institutions that failed them are held to account. It is good. Obviously, Esther McVey has massive experience in government. She knows how these institutions have worked, and she fought against them. Obviously, she didn't get anywhere because the leaders at the time of the Tory party or Tory government didn't really have any appetite in doing a massive crackdown on not just in terms of the grooming gangs, but any issue that relates to vulnerable people, especially women and children. Now, we go to Rupert's reaction to Esther's appointment, saying, "Yes, I'm so pleased to welcome Esther McVey to the inquiry's expert panel. We are building a proper team, including a cross-party support. This issue is far more important than any political party politics. Lots more news to come soon." So seems like Rupert Lowe has been relatively successful in terms of as a political campaigner slash lobbyist, because obviously if you're in Westminster, you basically you are your own lobbyist, and if you have a campaign, you're gonna have to be able to be persuasive, and you have to be able to convince others to support your cause. And I can assure you, it's not an easy thing to do, because the Westminster Village and politics in Britain, which is extremely centralized, it is also very tribal, which means if for example a Labour MP wants to do something good for the country and approaches some Lib Dem MPs and Tory MPs or Reform, it's not always easy to get them to say yes. There are so many reasons that they wouldn't be able to do it, whether it's party political matters or conflict of interest, or they just don't care. And being able to sell these sort of ideas, especially if you're Rupert Lowe, who's currently apparently controversial. Because he's been investigated and the media is calling him far-right football hooligan and everything else. A lot of the mainstream politicians would stay away. From their perspective, you're like, fair enough. You're a coward. You're scared of what's going to happen to you inside your party, but also what the media will do to you. Because if you'll be associated with a football hooligan like Rupert Lowe, then obviously then you'll be in a massive trouble. They find dirt on you and your family. Let's give you an update on what's going on with this inquiry on the crowdfunding, because it's going too well. Yes, they have now exceeded £500,000. It's currently on £549,880. The initial target was already reached anyway, which was about, I think, £100,000. Then it went up to 200. Now it's obviously getting closer to, stretching the target at £1 million. We've had almost 18,000 supporters joining this team to ensure that the truth comes out about what's been going on over the last few decades in our country. Rupert Lo also made a video a couple of days ago to obviously celebrate this success so far. Obviously, this is just a small battle. The war has not been won yet. Let's quickly go to Rupert Lo.
Good evening, everybody. I am delighted to say we just reached £500,000 on our crowdfunder to fund what I call the People's Inquiry into this blot on our history, the Pakistani rape gang scandal, which the government has singularly failed to deal with from top to bottom. Both Conservatives and Labour, the police, the social services, everybody involved have let us down. And what I think this shows is the depth of feeling amongst the people. And I am humbled that they have put their faith in me to try and do my best to uncover the truth and shame people, and particularly the Labour Party, into what is required, which is a statutory investigation into this stain on our history. So thank you all very much. It's incredible. It's an incredible result from all of us, and hopefully it will at least go some way to finding the truth. All the very best, and have a great weekend. Bye.
I love how he had to say bye at the end of the video. He's so polite. Anyway, there is this post as well which was yesterday. Rupert said it is time to scrap the entire asylum system. No more asylum seekers. The process is being so abused, so misused, and so exploited. No more. If you arrive illegally and attempt to claim asylum, you will be met with deportation, no excuses, no debate, no appeals, just deportations. And actually, speaking to lawyers who understand the Constitution and our obligations to the international treaties, including the ECHR, there is a very simple loophole. So there are two issues we have that we can fix. So a lot of people say, how do you do mass deportations? How do you stop this? You can't. But the reality is, the reason we are in this mess is not necessarily just because of ECHR, the European Convention of Human Rights. It's because we are one of the few countries that under Tony Blair, when he was Prime Minister, we decided to write it down as an act of Parliament for our Parliament to be forced to implement any judgment coming from the ECHR. Many other countries, including Denmark, don't have this. So essentially, an ECHR judge can say something, but the governments, certain governments in Europe can say, well, we're going to choose not to do it because we have our own supreme entities and bodies in our country. In Britain, the reason we are in this mess is because there is an act of Parliament that forces us to follow it. So that's one issue. So you can either remove that, but again, you need to be in government in order to do that. You have to have the majority in order to do that. And we haven't really heard anything from any of the even so-called centre-right parties. So far, nothing from Kemi Badenoch or Nigel Farage, Reform and Tory, to scrap that, which is kind of fascinating. They are going with the more populist-y rhetoric. People know ECHR. Let's just say we're going to leave ECHR. But what you should also do is scrap the Act of Parliament. But there's also another short-term loophole, because the reason we are obliged to do this is because we're also part of the United Nations Refugee Convention, Migrant Pact, and everything else. And they say if people come because you have a program for asylum seekers, you have to at least hear them out. They need to be able to apply. Well, there is a loophole. Domestic policies of any country is still sovereign, which means if a country like the UK decides, we're still part of these entities, right? We decide to scrap our asylum system. We just stop it, whether you want to pause it or completely cancel it. Then legally, for your own domestic policies in your country, you don't have a system, which means no international court can force you to take in asylum seekers. So that's another short-term solution that you can have while you start the process to leave the ECHR and also to scrap a lot of the legislations that were passed by Tony Blair and his new Labour government. You have to do all these things. Otherwise, there is no point. You can't just say, I'm going to leave ECHR. That doesn't really fix everything. It doesn't. It's just a little bit of the issue. You got so many of the constitutional changes made by Tony Blair that hasn't actually been removed, and you have to actually start from there if you want to fix the country. So let's get some reaction. We got the first superchat from Epic 2000. Thank you very much, saying good to see people working together. This is what the UK needs. Hopefully we see more. We've got a country to save. This is how you actually unite the right or unite the country in general. You have to be able to work together despite political parties. Problem is most political leaders don't really want this to happen, but you're going to have to do it if you care about the country and if you are on frontline politics. Let's get some non-super chats. Helen says, hi guys, I hope you have all joined the Free Speech Union. YouTube are trying to censor us. Musk is it's happy to help fund legal costs. Yes, oh yeah, the Free Speech Union is a great organization, obviously led by my good friend Toby Young, who was also featured in our latest documentary, Cancelled, which you can watch on 2c.tv. Andrew says, that was a good excuse to do a plug, right? Andrew says, if Rupert Lowe is a football hooligan, that's what they say, then I'm going to buy a season ticket at Southampton. Okay, let's not go crazy. The whole Southampton project did not go too well. Let's just brilliant. Anyway, yeah, we're going to have a fresh football team. Steve says, excellent. Go, James. Go, Rupert. And get justice for these innocent young girls. The truth needs to come out. And, even if he doesn't have any statutory powers, it doesn't matter, because the truth must be uncovered. Then that will actually force the establishment to do their own inquiries and investigation, because when more evidence comes out, then they won't have any other choice. That includes the CPS, Crown Prosecution Service, and the courts. They all have to be on top of it the moment the truth comes out. Flynn Pin says, you lot need to stop this and unite. That's literally what they're doing, by the way. You make me sick to think this country needs you all together, but no, you got your petty nonsense. Well, I mean, to be fair, this update is actually about unity. So you can see people from different political parties, again, right-wing parties, Tories and Reform and Independents, they are getting together. So this is actually about unity, not division. Mountain Cat says, just a thought from an American. Rupert Lowe is about as close to a Donald Trump as I've seen in the UK. Well, at least in terms of the rhetoric, yes, but also in terms of hard work, because Rupert is one of the few actually hard-working MPs inside the chamber. He's always in the chamber, and he's always asking questions and participating in debates. Many MPs don't even turn up anyway, because they have photo ops. They have to go take photos with a lot of photos. Scott says Farage is the only hope. All other politicians rather support the National Socialists in Ukraine. Nigel Farage is also a massive supporter of Ukraine and President Zelensky, by the way. So let's not forget. Then the British people. Can't believe you let it go on and on. Sucking national. This person is clearly very mentally well. It's 5:30 p.m. UK time, and swear words are already coming out. I mean, how much of a stressful life do you have? Brilliant. Anyway, Devon Lilly says that these girls who are targeted have been let down by their parents. First of all, these people show them love and give them stuff. They are vulnerable. I mean, the whole community completely neglected. The actual, on a societal level, a lot of the young kids, if you had better culture in terms of the actual parents, neighborhoods, actual neighbors, community, schools, teachers, everything, you wouldn't have had this situation where random young girls would just be somewhere else instead of being at home. There's so many issues that they've been able to be targeted, and it hasn't really been addressed. It's very bad. Now, Alan says the Tories had 14 years to repeal these stupid laws and did nothing because they agreed with them. They are as much to blame as Blair, because what we've had, I know I'm repeating myself, we've had the same government since 1997. We just had a change of management, and that is the main problem, because even when David Cameron came into power in 2010, he still believed in the fundamentals that were implemented by Tony Blair. His priority was simply to sort out the actual economy in terms of the budgets, the recession, everything else. There was no urgency to tackle the cultural issues and the constitutional issues. Although there was some rhetoric, for example, David Cameron back in 2011, 2012, he made a speech, made a very good speech against multiculturalism, and it was one of the first few actual political leaders at the time, not normal people, political leaders who did talk about it, didn't do anything about it, but did talk about it. And it was interesting because the media didn't really attack him. Because in the West, we have an issue where the establishment and the media, they don't really focus on what's being said. They care about who is saying it. So the same speech that was made by David Cameron against multiculturalism in a polite way, but it was good. The rhetoric was good. Nothing was done. That speech, if it was made by Tommy Robinson or even Nigel Farage at the time, they would just call it far right. But because it was David Cameron, it's fine. It's happened so many times. So they don't really care about the actual message. They care about the messenger. So Rupert Lowe right now can say all the right things, but they're still going to attack him because they don't like the messenger. This happens all the time. The actual British natives, the white Anglo-Saxons in England, for example, they don't really have any opportunity to be respected, to be heard. The people in power, again, whether you talk about the political establishment or the media, don't want to listen to ordinary people because they see them as peasants. It's interesting because if relatively normal people who don't really have power, if they happen to be, for example, my skin color, some sort of brown or something, then, they will listen to them. Or if they happen to be left-wing, and even if they are irrelevant, for example, Greta Thunberg, who was a teenager, then they would listen. But in a normal person, you're a bad messenger. Glenda says it will be in a very bad taste if Farage gets rid of James now, as he was supposed to do this anyway and chose not to for some reason. I don't think it's going to happen. It's a very interesting point to be made because I think, but James is still a very good team player inside Reform. And he's still very loyal in terms of supporting the campaigns across the country for Reform candidates. He's everywhere. He's always obviously promoting the party. It would be difficult to see a situation where the leadership and the chairman of Reform would just randomly get rid of him. I mean, anything is possible these days. Anything, but don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think he will be getting rid of, or they just let him do what he's doing now, as long as he's still a good team player as part of Reform? Now, what's this? Daniel says the weasels are wasting time across the board. Stupid story after story. No partiality. What is this context? There's no context. It would be good to have context in the comments as well. Educated working class men who know right from wrong, who didn't inherit wealth, who are very educated should run nations. I'm very much against this idea of you have to be educated, academically educated to be able to run the country. No, because we've had a lot of people who are so-called educated and they've made a complete mess. What you need is people with wisdom and street smart. People who actually understand common sense and reality. You could have a lot of knowledge. You could read a lot of books and memorize a lot of information about history, about, I don't know, just facts, or even about science. That doesn't necessarily mean you'll be a good manager. That doesn't necessarily mean you have good people skills. So being educated is kind of irrelevant. So you have to know the real world and the everyday problems. But also you need to have wisdom to be able to actually tell what the real issues are. And you need to be able, the wisdom also brings open-mindedness. You need to be open-minded enough to listen to advisors and experts, actual experts. You have to listen to all sides. You can't just be told what to do. All these idiots who are actually so-called educated, they listen to one side, echo chamber expert, and they just make up their mind. Well, there we go. This person told me I should do this. They don't do their own homework. They don't listen to the other side. You have to be able to do this. Samina says, Tusi, will you be at Tommy's hearing tomorrow? Yes, that's the plan. Obviously, tomorrow is the Tommy Robinson's appeal at the Royal Court of Justice. For those of you, if you want to come, obviously we will be there in the morning. The Royal Court of Justice in London, in central London. We'll be there. We'll do it's going to be a long day, I guess. Well, long morning. And we'll do a report for you guys from outside the courts to find out what's going on. I'm not really that optimistic that he's going to be winning this, but we'll find out. Gwen says he hasn't joined Lowe's team. Yes, he has. There's the panel for the inquiry, including Stanley Woodhouse and Esther McVey and others as well. He has agreed to be on the committee, a panel, not committee. It could be useful to Reform UK. Yes, it's absolutely useful to Reform UK. You're just saying random things now, Gwen. So obviously this is the team that's been created by Rupert Lowe, and they are working together, cross-party. And there is now a so-called expert panel that is going, and also the literal definition of the committee is literally a team. Team and committee mean the same thing. You should have said panel, would have been less teamy. And they are working together to fight, and it's definitely good for the Tories and Reform because you got people from the Tories and Reform as part of this team. And obviously it's good for them because they could say, look, we got a representative there. Instead of getting, for example, Kemi Badenoch to get involved, then we have someone, we got a Tory there. Vinny the Pooh from Canada says, love your show, keep up the good work. Free Tommy, thank you so much for that, Vinny the Pooh. And that is not President Xi, for the record. Anyway, this is the latest updates from British politics and this inquiry and the crowdfunding that's still ongoing. Tomorrow we'll be outside the Royal Court of Justice to report from Tommy Robinson's appeal and hearing. I'm Maya Tusi, and we are the media.